This is the Planet Pulse astrological overview for the month of September 2014. I'm Jeff Jower.
And I'm Rick Levine. September is that time of year when the seasons change from summer into autumn.
And the astrological indicator of that is the sun's movement from Virgo to Libra on September 22nd. You know what I find interesting, Rick, is even though there's a seasonal change from the personal summer energy to the interpersonal fall energy, that both Virgo and Libra are pretty refined.
Yeah, they both are refined. That's really an interesting observation. Virgo is more intellectually, mentally refined, and Venus is the refined side of, Libra is the refined side of Venus that's sensual in Taurus, which is its other ruling sign. And in Libra, it's more about the mental aspect of the aesthetic perfection. And so, yes, there is that sense of both of these signs, and we do have planets that are changing signs this month into Virgo and Libra.
Yeah, the parade starts, apart from the moon, which changes signs every couple of days, the parade of planet shifts, or ingresses, as they're technically called, begins on the 2nd of the month when intellectual Mercury enters objective Libra. Now, we may have been more analytical previously with Mercury in detail-oriented Virgo, but the capacity to see both sides of a situation, to listen and negotiate, is one of the great gifts of Mercury in Libra.
Right, and that's followed by, interestingly enough, Venus, which is leaving Leo and moving into Virgo. It's lagging behind the parade. And so we still get this kind of longing for the summer, even though it's beginning to wane or beginning to fade away. Venus's move into Virgo on the 5th says, I still like the idea of summer, which is, of course, an easy idea to like.
Well, it's an interesting paradox when we think of Virgo as summer, because we also think of Virgo as a work sign. Mm-hmm. So it's really the harvest sign, in a sense. It's that part of the summer when we're sweating in the fields. But Venus, the planet of love in Virgo, although traditional astrology doesn't like that, because Virgo is critical and exclusionary, and Venus is sociable and connective in a way. So Venus and Virgo can be hypercritical about others, about ourselves, about the value of things, but it also reminds us that the love and the pleasure that Venus represents can also be worked for or refined through the practical efforts of earthy Virgo.
And as the month continues, we move toward the full moon on the 8th, and that full moon is again a time of the month where we reach a turning point. But it's like the energy has been growing, and it's almost like another imprint of the fall. If the new moon is the beginning of a cycle, the full moon is like the halfway point. So it's like autumn is the halfway point, and that full moon, in a way, it's like the energy's been going outward, and the second part of the month we pull in perhaps a bit more.
Yeah, and one of the specific contrasts we have for this particular full moon is that the moon is in boundless, forgiving Pisces, opposite the sun in detail-oriented Virgo. As a combination that has to do with service. Virgo is concrete service. Pisces is service of the heart or of the spirit, and that full moon can help awaken us to understand if the more spiritual needs in our lives are being met.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, though, also about this full moon? The full moon is on the 8th, and from about the 9th to the 15th, we have Mercury moving through Libra that's hitting off that square that we've talked about
the
for a year.
The
Uranus-Pluto square. And so in a way, the middle of the month, even though Mercury and Libra should have this sense of balance, equanimity, we're kind of being pulled into a conflict phase during that time. And it's interesting because it corresponds also with Mars moving into Sagittarius on the 13th. And so there's motion in the middle of the month.
Absolutely. The active planet, or the planet of action, Mars, which was peddling in Libra for 8.5 months and finally moved into Scorpio.
It wasn't even peddling, it was coasting.
Right, through
backwards.
Libra, which can sort of, it's like being on a sailboat and not having any wind. But what happened is that Mars entered one of its home signs, Scorpio, in late July. We started digging in, maybe catching up, getting revenge for all the things we smiled at against our will when Mars was in Libra. And then Mars blasts into outgoing, enthusiastic Sagittarius, putting this fiery, energetic planet in a fiery, outgoing sign.
Right, and you know that fire energy also has another whole thing cooking this month, because not only is Mars moving into a fire sign, but Jupiter is in Leo for the entire year now. And as we push toward the end of the month, and I'm jumping ahead only because this is an aspect that's exact on the 25th, but it's with us all month, and that is that Jupiter forms a harmonious trine with Uranus, and this is fire, fire, fire. In effect, this month really has a fire theme that's not problematic fire, it's integrative fire.
Right, which is about creativity. Fire is not dealing with reality as it is, it's about creating a new reality. And if we had to talk about only one thing all month, we'd be talking about this Jupiter-Uranus trine.
I would be.
A major aspect, which 120-degree harmonious trine is, between two slower-moving outer planets is a big event, and it's mind-blowing, it's expansive. Every problem that you think locks you up on a personal level and that locks us up on a collective level has possible solutions. I'm not saying we're going to resolve them all, but it's almost like the collective mind is just open to information that's not yet in the field when this trine happens.
Well said. And even if we're not going to resolve them all, we're going to see them all. And that's part of the magic of this trine. It's not necessary, even though fire is considered to be action-oriented, this is a fire in the mind. And so even if we just open our minds to see all the possibilities, we can do the work afterwards as the energy settles down. It's the opening of the mind that's so important during this time.
Yeah, and I think a big part of it has to do with the quality of fire. Fire does not restrain itself based upon the sensitivities of others. Fire just is. And
right.
I think giving ourselves the freedom to think anything, as long as it's positive and creative, but in that upbeat direction, can then be adjusted. I mean, we've got Mercury going into Scorpio on the 27th, which is negotiating out at a deeper level. We've got Venus going into sociable Libra on the 29th of September, which is again having to build alliances. So if we allow ourselves to go through the stages of just blue sky thinking, we can work on how it's going to fit into other people's lives afterward.
And let's backtrack to the 23rd, 24th, the night of the 23rd or early morning on the 24th, when just a couple of days after the sun has gone into Libra and autumn has begun, we now have a new moon, which reasserts the beginning of this month, a new moon in Libra.
And the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is within 24 hours of the new moon. A new moon is a new monthly cycle. This one's important, even more important, because it's a new season, and to have this big blue sky, new computer mind technology opening up really pushes us into the fall, I think, in a good way.
And so the kind of overall, the takeaway from this is that this is a month of change, but it's not necessarily embroiled in the same old stuff that we've been dealing with. I mean, that stuff isn't going away. I mean, the larger social, political, economic issues that we're dealing with are not going away, but this is a month where the hope of the potential of what's possible, I think, comes into being, and especially around that new moon of the 24th and that week, that's a time to aim your intentions and to kind of really open up to the potentials that are ahead. I'm Rick Levine.
And I'm Jeff Jower, looking forward to an exciting, creative, and brilliant September of 2014.